Good morning, students. Am I audible? Audible, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, uh, in the last class, at the end of the last class, I was getting some questions regarding the losses, how to interpret no load, etc. So, in today's class, I would like to clarify that what is no load, and the other part of it is called blocked rotor. Blocked rotor, as the English says, that rotors are blocked, right? So no load and block rotor. This block rotor corresponds to S is equal to 1 because omega rotor is equal to 0. So slip is equal to 1, and no load corresponds to not really equal to S is equal to uh, 0. The speed is uh, not really equal to the synchronous speed. Uh, Only it is slightly loaded, very lightly loaded, because machine is rotating, still rotating. No load doesn't mean that the machine is not, doesn't mean that the machine is not rotating. Machine is rotating, and the machine is rotating very close to the synchronous speed. So therefore, as it is rotating, there will be some friction related rotational losses. We call it rotational losses. To clarify the thing, that under no load condition, and it is good to always compare, and if we compare with the transformer, in the transformer we had learned that no load loss is essentially the core loss. Core loss. Copper loss is almost negligible, and it is neglected. In fact, the no load loss is considered to be core loss, which is reasonable, because transformer, none of the body parts of the transformer rotate. It is a stationary, both primary and the secondary coils are stationary. So there is no question of any rotational loss. Whereas the induction machine, the no load means essentially no load from the point of view of power transfer to the mechanical system. It simply means the mechanical system is not yet taking any power from the electrical system. That is what no load means. But as such, machine has to rotate. Machine has to rotate, and rotate at very close to the synchronous speed. So under that condition, there will be uh, so-called rotational losses. And you can, hello, yeah.
Yes, sir. So in no load loss, we can neglect the stator copper loss, or we'll include it.
Will include, because we'll see that with the example. Will include, because why will include, when will we should take stator couplers and when we should not take. When we can conceptually think that the stator current is not significant, then we can ignore it, as we can do in a transformer case, because transformers magnetizing inductance value is very large. And I have explained in the last class why it is large, because the magnetic path is confined always through the magnetic material. So therefore the inductance value, since the mu r value is very large, so therefore it takes very little magnetizing current, and therefore no load current is also not so significant, and therefore there is no point in making it complicated and considering the stator loss. However, in the case of an induction machine, the magnetizing inductance is not so large. It is not so large, and many times we may not consider it insignificant, and therefore there is a current, the stator current, we cannot consider it to be insignificant, and therefore we have to take care of the stator copper loss under no load condition as well. So here the idea of no load is somewhat changing. One new loss is coming, that is rotational loss, and one loss is almost ignored unless somebody says it specifically. That loss is called core loss. Core loss is almost ignored, because at least you are clear that it is not there in the rotor, because rotor is almost seeing no change, no frequency variation, no the signals are almost DC. There is no frequency, because rotor, the voltage that is induced in the rotor, the current that flows in the rotor is of very low frequency. and under no load condition it is of almost like zero frequency, because it has reached almost the synchronous speed. So the voltage induced in the rotor is almost zero, and it also has a zero frequency. So there is no chance of having any rotor iron loss. There is some iron loss in the stator. So however, people for simplicity's sake most of the time ignore it. So you are also supposed to ignore it unless somebody specifically says there is a core loss, and that core loss you will subtract at the end. At the end means that from the power Pg into 1 minus S, which is supposed to be internal power, internal output power. Pg is the air gap power. Pg into 1 minus S is the output power internally before you subtract frictional losses and core losses. So core loss is subtracted at the end if it is said, but for the time being, let us not complicate. We ignore core loss. Okay, so let us start with that kind of understanding and see what is happening in this case. So a machine is tested, machine data is given. My stylus is somewhat problematic, so I have written some of the things today. This is the machine power in HP. It is a 3-phase machine. It is a 220 volt. If nothing is said, you will think that it is a line to line. 19 ampere is the rated current of the machine. This machine data is taken from American thing, so therefore it is a 60 hertz supply. It is a 4-pole machine, and it is a squirrel cage machine. And in this squirrel cage machine, they have said that the ratio of x1 is to x2 dash is equal to 3/7. X1 is the primary side leakage inductance, and x2 dash is the secondary side leakage reactance referred to the primary. So that ratio they have given. Values they have not given, but the ratio they have given. So now the tests have been carried out. No load test has been carried out at 60 hertz. That means machine is allowed to rotate, right? And the applied voltage is as normally is done. Hello, if you find anything not clear, please stop me and ask me. Okay. So you all know the no load test is always carried out at the rated voltage. Okay, so the voltage is 219 volt. It is written 220 volt, but since it's a test, sometimes we are not able to precisely match it. But 219 can be considered to be a rated voltage, right? This is the actual test data, and obviously it is line to line, right? So applied voltage is 219 volt, and this voltage is line to line. No load current, it is just a measurement, and that current I no load is 5.70 ampere. Okay, so so that is the data. Then just like a transformer test, we always do measure the powers, and the power is always measured with 2 wattmeter method in a 3-phase system. So 2 wattmeter method, W1 is getting this and W2 is showing this. So that means the effective power input is 680 watt minus 300 watt is equal to 380 watt. Right, that is the effective power that is input. So with common sense or the way we have described the physics, this 380 watt is spent in 2 parts. You can know that that one part is the stator copper loss, and another part which is rather insignificant part, and the more significant part or more dominant part is the rotational loss. Okay, friction, etc. combined together, we give a term called rotational loss. So we'll come back. Yeah.
Sir, in no load test, should we consider the rotor part of the circuit open because slip is very high?
Yeah, we are almost considering that.
Sorry, slip is very low, so R2 by S will be very high. So
yes.
okay.
Yes. So we'll show you the equivalent circuit a little later. So definitely we will consider that the rotor part of the circuit. In an equivalent circuit, it is open. Actual rotor is rotor. This is a squirrel cage machine. There is no question of thinking that it is open. But the equivalent circuit, which actually represents the mechanical situation as well. So therefore, since there is no mechanical power output, so therefore we have to think that there is no current. Therefore, we have to think that the rotor equivalent resistance in the rotor circuit is equal to infinity, right? So we'll come to that. And
Sir?
yeah.
Sir, why the block rotor test is carried out as means its the frequency is very low, means 15 hertz. Then the rated.
You tell me why. At least you have got a hint. I have told you why it could be done. In fact, in the last class we were talking this idea only.
Sir, I think means here we have reduced the frequency and reduced the voltage also.
Yeah.
So to keep
So-
the same flux level and at the rated current, I think we.
Yes, and we are trying to mimic the situation that actually happens. Actually happens what? Actually, stator is given 50 hertz, and the rotor rotates at somewhat close to 50 hertz or 60 hertz. Okay, so the differential thing is the slip speed, s omega s. Okay, so s omega is s maybe 3%, 4%, right? So that 4% here should not be 15 hertz, it should be lower, but they are trying to reduce that because the rotor is blocked. So they are trying to mimic the situation, the amount of voltage that is induced in the rotor. They are trying to mimic the similar situation. They are not able to do it at because they probably do not have a supply of 5 hertz in the laboratory. You understand what I mean? Suppose the actual machine rotates at 5% slip. Okay, tell me what will be the frequency of the voltage induced in the rotor? The actual machine rotates under rated condition
5%.
5% slip.
5%.
Of 60 hertz. In this case, the machine is 60 hertz. So 5% of 60 hertz is 3 hertz, right?
Yes.
Right. So now you imagine, I make the rotor equal to 0. I make the rotor speed equal to 0. That is what the block rotor test is there. Block rotor means physically somebody is holding the rotor. A solid clamping system with chain, etc. They have clamped the. Otherwise, rotor is tending to move because we know that there is a torque developed. Torque is the force. So that the rotor doesn't move, somebody has clamped the rotor. Here it has solidly held. So, but the frequency of the voltage that normally induced in the rotor under running condition is 60 into 5%. I said 0.05 is about 3 hertz. Is 3 hertz? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So if I want to mimic that situation under block rotor condition, what frequency should I apply to the stator?
Means we should apply 3 hertz, but I think 3 hertz is not available, so at a lower
frequency. But the lab may not be sophisticated enough to apply that 3 hertz at that reduced voltage. So they have got somehow a 15 hertz supply. Sometimes maybe they are in the lab. So 15 hertz supply, with that they are doing the test, and accordingly they have adjusted the voltage. Accordingly, the adjustable, the way I have said, that ratio must be same. Okay, otherwise the flux saturates. So that's why they have used this voltage and at 15 hertz. This is a practical compromise. They are trying to be close to that rated condition, but they did it at this thing. Don't question beyond that. They have done this, and it seems reasonable. It is at least better than doing at 60 hertz. Okay, so making the result data at getting the data at 15 hertz seems to be better choice. And you see the current is almost rated, and 2 wattmeter readings they have taken as usual. They have to take. Okay, then for some reason we'll see why. For some reason, probably they want to do this block rotor test at 60 hertz also. Another test they have conducted. So first test is no load test. Second test is block rotor test at 15 hertz. This was the second test. And this is the third test they have done. Okay, it will mean something. No. What does it mean? What does it mean? Block rotor test at 60 hertz. What does it mean? What situation do we mimic in this? Starting situation, right? starting. From this we can get the what is the starting torque, right? Blocking the rotor and applying 60 hertz to the stator is mimicking a situation of start, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. So that is, hello, anybody?
So what does W1 and W2 mean here, correspond here?
Oh, you don't know that W1 3 wattmeter method of power measurement, you don't know that you have studied in the first year in a three-phase system. How do we measure power? 2 wattmeter method, you do not know?
Yes, sir, we know that.
You know that it is that W1 and W2 are 2 wattmeter method. You remember how do we do one of the phases, you make it common and apply between the other.
Sir, W1 corresponds to stator copper loss, right? And W2.
No, under not all situations. This W1 and W2 is for block rotor condition, and the other one was for this one was for no load condition. There are 3 tests. Why are you getting confused? We have watt meters. W1 and W2 means reading of 2 watt meters. That means it is indicating under this condition how much power is absorbed by the machine. This is the power that it is taking under no load condition. This is the power it is taking under block rotor condition 1 with 15 hertz supply. This is the power summation of that. Summation of that W1 plus W2 is the summation.
Got it.
Got it, right? Got it. Thank you. Now they are doing 4th test. 4th test is that they independently, just using a multimeter or simple DC voltage and DC current, they measure the stator resistance. Rotor resistance you cannot measure, but it is not by exciting the machine. It is simply, you may think that you are using a multimeter to measure the stator resistance per phase. They are measuring this. One simple way of measuring DC resistance means you can either measure this way also, or you can measure by applying a DC voltage and measuring the DC current. Just a coil, 2 coils are, this is a resistor, this is a basically winding. You apply this voltage V and DC, and you measure the IDC current, and then you get 2 resistances in series, then you divide and find out per phase resistance. Is that okay? Did you understand this? The stator resistance measurement, do you understand this? Hello?
Can you repeat again?
How do we measure the stator resistance? What we do is, machine has 3 terminals, right? Yes or no? Somebody should say yes. So
Yes.
you choose any 2 terminals. Let us say machine is connected in star mode, right? And you apply a DC voltage. Let us say you apply DC voltage of 10 volt. Okay? And you get a current of, let us say, 5 ampere. Get a current means you have used a DC ammeter to measure the current. Yes or no? So the summation resistance, since you are applying between 2 terminals, the 3rd terminal is open, right? 2 terminals you have applied, this terminal and this terminal you have applied DC voltage, and the 3rd terminal is open. So what resistance will you see? What resistance will you see? That is resistance to, this case measurement resistance is 10 volt divided by 5 ampere is equal to 2 ohm. So 2 ohm is equal to R1 plus R1. 2 resistances in series, they are coming. These 2 resistances are series in coming. Yes or no? Yeah. Are you not imagining a little bit also? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Understood.
Understood, right? So 2 resistances in series represents the 2 ohm. So R1 will be equal to 1 ohm. So I gave you just an example. So in this method, in this way, they can measure the stator resistance R1. Clear? Is that clear? They can measure stator resistance R1. So what are they measuring? 3 tests they have done in this case. No load test, block rotor test at 15 hertz, block rotor test at 60 hertz, and measurement of DC resistance per phase. Up to this is clear? Is that clear? Hello? Okay. Now, first thing is that we measure, we find out. You stop me if you do not understand. this PR corresponds to rotational loss. Okay, rotational loss. I want to measure the rotational loss. So what will be the rotational loss? No load power, that is input. Okay, that is P no load. Okay, that we have already got from wattmeter readings, W1 plus W2. How much is it in this case? How much is it? 380 watt. So that is 380 watt. So how much is the copper loss? You see, we are taking copper loss here, stator copper loss. Stator resistance has been measured and stator current has been measured. So that is the stator copper loss. Why 3? Because it is 3-phase. Okay, so all the readings are corresponds to a 3-phase system. So it is 3. 3 represents 3-phase. This is no load current, that square, and this is the resistance. So effectively, this is the rotational loss.
Sir, here you ignored the means core loss, na?
I have ignored core loss. Core loss is ignored. Okay. Otherwise, this loss will represent rotational loss per core loss plus core loss. So then one more data would be required to separate them two. Otherwise, we require, if you want to include core loss, some more information has to be given to you from then this 354 watt will represent the summation of core loss and the rotational loss, and you have to separate somewhere. So don't bother now. Let us ignore the core loss.
The I1 is given out. We have calculated it.
I no load is direct measurement. I no load. Yeah, you people do not remember transformer. In all this no load test, 3 things are available to you: voltage reading, current reading, and power reading. Voltage reading, remember it: voltage reading, current reading, and power reading. These 3 things are available. So I represents here direct by ammeter. Is represents here the no load current. No calculation yet. Here these are measurements. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Did I answer your question? So it is a measurement thing. I no load. Okay. So this is P no load in this case. V no load, which is rated voltage. I no load. These are the 3 things. Also given somehow in another case the resistance, stator resistance R1. Okay. So let us first do what is Z no load just by V by I. Just by doing V by I, what do I get? This is a number. We'll interpret it later. What does it mean physically? We'll interpret it later. This is Z no load. V by I. Simple V by I. Achha. What is R no load? Is this. R no load is 380 divided by 3 into 370 square. It is equal to 3.9 ohm per phase. This is just V by power divided by 3 into I square. Okay, I am not giving it any physical meaning with respect to the machine yet. It is just computed to numbers. Then if I do XNL is equal to square root of ZNL square minus RNL square, I get a quantity XNL. Okay, if you do it, you will get this number. So now you may think, what does it mean? Now may think, what does it mean? Right? XNL would imply what? XNL will definitely imply what? Can you tell me? Somebody tell me, what will XNL physically imply?
Means X1 plus XM.
X1 plus
XM.
Good. That is what is called X1 plus X. That means magnetizing inductance plus the leakage inductance of the coil, of the stator coil. That will be, because the equivalent circuit is like this. I will go show you the equivalent circuit once. This is our equivalent circuit. This is our equivalent circuit in the no load condition. XM, you can call it XM, no load condition. I have written XM5. So no load condition. R1 is a this R no load that we are measuring is a kind of combination of R1 plus R rotor, R rotation. The rotational loss, if I convert it into an equivalent resistance, that will be indicated by R no load. Okay, so I don't care too much about R no load because I already know R1. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So why are we ignoring the rotor part here?
S is equal to how much? S is equal to how much? No load condition. S is equal to how much? Nearly equal to
Tending
0.
to 0.
Yeah. So R2 dash by S. How much is it?
Okay,
that?
so we have considered it open circuit, right?
Yeah. It is. We have considered it to be open.
Sir, here since means X no load is X1 plus XM. For that, and you have used that Z mod Z equal to root over R no load square plus R plus X no load square. Then rotational resistance should come in series with the stator resistance now for that to be valid.
That's why we have used not R1 but R no load. That is represented in reflected in R no load. I have not used R1. I have used R no load. This is R no load has been calculated. It means both R1 plus R rotational. It implies that. But my objective is simply to find out X no load. My objective is not to separate it out. What is R rotation? I don't want to separate it out. R rotation is a kind of conceptual model of the rotational loss, which when you measure it, when you measure it will get reflected in the R value, because it is based on loss. So loss has a two parts. One part is stator copper loss and another part is the rotational loss. So it value wise it will come. So that's why in order to find out X no load, I must not do Z no load minus R1 square. I must do R no load square. Okay, so that will give me the X no load, and X no load is nothing but we know that it is X1 plus XM. In this derivation, I am writing X5. So you can think that XM is equal to X5. I am just using magnetizing. Sometimes they say phi means flux, so that's why magnetizing flux. The same thing I am using. Just excuse me for unnecessarily introducing one new variable, that magnetizing or phi. So is that clear? Up to this is clear, right? Yes or no? The equivalent circuit, if it is clear, everything will be clear.
Yes, sir, it's clear.
So the rotor part is not there. It is only stator part. Okay, and the stator part we are finding out. The objective of this is to find out X no load, but I cannot immediately find out X1. I do not know what is X1. I have found out a combination thing which is nothing but X1 plus Xn. This variable I have found out. I do not know how to separate this yet. So to do that, I have to go to the block rotor test at 15 Hz. I have to separate it out. I have to find out X1. So let us see what is the block rotor test equivalent circuit first, and see that if it is reasonable or not. So this is the block rotor equivalent circuit, and the block equivalent circuit in this case contains all elements. Only S is equal to 1 because it is a block rotor, and X5 or XM is there. That is the magnetizing inductor. I cannot ignore magnetizing inductors. This is a very basic difference with respect to transformer test. In the transformer test, we ignore the magnetizing inductance in short circuit test. Block rotor test is equivalent to something like a short circuit test. But in the case of induction machine, it is slightly complicated because the magnetizing inductance, I am repeating again and again, its value is not that large. If its value is large, you can ignore it because it's a shunt branch. Don't be asking me, sir, if it is large, how do you ignore it? I ignore it because it is in the shunt. If anything is the shunt and the large, you can ignore it, right? But this is in the shunt branch and it is not so large in the case of an induction machine equivalent circuit. Therefore, we have to put it. Its effect is there in the equivalent circuit. And if it is there, equivalent circuit, then temporarily in your mind we think that it is nothing but R equivalent plus X equivalent. That means this is nothing but JXM in parallel with R2 dash plus JX2 dash. This combination I am presenting it as R equivalent plus J equivalent. Okay, so the measurement is seeing the circuit, this circuit. The measurement part is not understanding anything, but it is seeing this circuit. That means it is seeing a circuit resistance of R1 plus R equivalent, and it is seeing seeing one reactance of X1 plus X equivalent. It is seeing that, right? So that is what it is seeing. So from that, let us find out these values. Anybody has any doubt? Okay. So first part is very easy. We do the same thing. First find out ZBL, that means block rotor impedance. We find out that, and that is this voltage divided by this current, and √3 is the effective per phase voltage, because always the number is given with respect to line. So this will be the 0.825 is the impedance. That means total thing that it sees. That means R1 plus R equivalent plus JX1 plus JX equivalent, its magnitude. That means R1, this Z equivalent is implying that R1 plus R equivalent square plus X1 plus X equivalent square and square root of that whole thing. So that is the Z seen by the measurement. Measurement is voltage by current. Impedance, voltage by current, that is seeing that impedance as a sum. It is not separated out. And it is also finding out total resistance seen by the circuit. That is our block rotor, RBL, right? So the RBL is 675 by 3 into this. So that will be the resistance, blocked rotor resistance seen by the circuit. Okay. So similarly, like earlier, X block rotor seen by the circuit is this one, right? Okay. Now you must understand that this test has been done at 15 Hz. So with respect to the original circuit is always done with respect to the synchronous, or with respect to the so-called synchronous speed, or the supply omega, supply frequency of 60 Hz. That is the original circuit. So since these measurements have been taken at 15 Hz, it has affected what? It has affected the reactance measurement. It has not affected the resistance measurement, but it has affected the reactance measurement. So if I want to convert this reactance into an equivalent 60 Hz reactance, which is what we want to do, right? Which is what we want to do for equivalent circuit, determining the parameters of the equivalent circuit. We have to convert this thing by 60 by 15. 60 is the rated frequency. 15 is the frequency at which the test has been conducted. And since it has affected reactance part, so this will be 2.01 ohm per phase. So what we have found out is the blocked rotor reactance, and the blocked rotor reactance from the equivalent circuit is, I know that it is X1 plus X equivalent. X1 plus X equivalent, right? Yes or no? Please comment. No comments? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the equivalent circuit. I just blocked rotor case. How do you get it from your, you don't have to remember anything. You just see that the original, the total equivalent circuit S is equal to 1 is the block rotor equivalent circuit. That is the equivalent circuit. The actual equivalent circuit of the machine, which has stator resistance, stator reactance, then magnetizing reactance, and then the rotor side. And rotor side, normally we write it as R2 dash by S. Here we put S is equal to 1, and we get that one. Right. Right. Yeah.
Our main aim for all these tests is to find the various parameters like rotor reactance, rotor resistance, etc. So from XBL and ZBL, how can we find that means R2 and X2, those things?
Sorry.
From rotor block resistance like RBL, ZBL, XBL. From those, how can we find X2 and?
And we are finding out. We'll find out. We'll find out. Okay. Okay. So. Okay. So. So what is our XM? What is our XM? Okay. Okay. X no load, we have found out it to be equal to we have found out it to be equal to 21.8 ohm, and so X magnetizing is equal to this into X1, right? I will tell you, just wait for some minutes.
What is this 21.8 that thing?
That is X no load, which is equal to X1 plus X5. The reactance determined by the no load thing.
And so how did you find X1 that you subtracted 0.603?
So how did I find X1? So here I found out from the ratio that I dictated. That is, I said that X1 by X2, X1 by X2 is equal to 3 by 7. X1 by X2 dash is 3 by 7. Oh, again the pen is popping. X1 by X2 dash is 3 by 7 is the thing given to me. This data is given to me. X1 plus ratio wise. The ratio wise this data is given to me. Okay, right? Got it. X1. I am not yet said that how do I get it X1. So now X1 you get is by taking
if X1 by X2 dash is given, how did you calculate X2 dash? That thing.
X1. So X1 is equal to 0.3 into X block rotor reactance. The block rotor reactance into 0.3 is equal to X1. The block rotor reactance into X2 is equal to X2 reactance. Into 0.7 is equal to X2 reactance.
Sir, can you please repeat? I didn't understand that.
You didn't understand. You didn't understand. I'm not able to write. Again, the pen is positive. So I will show you. You hold on to this number. That is X block rotor 2.01. We have got it, yes or no?
Yes.
We have got X block rotor, right? That block rotor reactance into 0.3, because the ratio is given, into 0.3 is x1. And block.
Sir, how is block rotor reactance equal to x2 dash? Means that means how did you get that?
Not equal to, into 0.7. That ratio it is getting divided.
Block rotor is actually x1 plus x equivalent na in the block rotor equivalent in the block rotor equivalent circuit.
Block rotor equivalent circuit, it is x1 plus
X equivalent na
x1 plus x1 plus x equivalent, that is equal to x block rotor. Correct? Correct? X1 plus x.
What are we substituting x equivalent?
No, we have not substituted yet anything. We are saying that just take block rotor value. Just let me complete this, then I will tell you. Just let me follow the procedure first. You understand that there is a thing we found out which is block rotor, XBL, right? 2.01. Yes or no? You have found out that, right? Which is nothing but physically it means x1 plus x equivalent, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now what we do is that for the here I will do a little bit of approximation, and I will say that this block rotor reactance into 0.3 is equal to x1, and the block rotor reactance into 0.7 is the x2 dash, is x2 dash. This is the way they are split. Block rotor reactance into 0.3 is equal to x1, and block rotor reactance into 0.7 is equal to x2 dash. Okay, if you have some small doubt on this, you hold it and keep it there. Keep it there. Let us continue, and I will come back to that maybe a little better. So what I am saying is that whatever block rotor reactance you get into 0.3, because that is how it has been defined, that whatever block rotor reactance you get, they have a chart. They have created that way. They know somebody has already done this thing, and they have created a chart where they say that whatever the block from the test result, if the value is this much, it is split between x1 and x2 dash in this manner. That is what they have told for this kind of squirrel cage machine. It is a kind of empirical data they have generated. If I get the block rotor value of something, that into 0.3 will become x1, and that into 0.7 will be x2 dash. That is what they have empirically found out. So they are saying once you have found out this block rotor value, you get the value of x1 and you get the value of x2 dash. That is, you don't question it how, because it is empirically found out. They have done various tests, and from the known value of an x1 and x2, they have found out that this would be the relationship between the block rotor value of reactance and the physical value of x1 and x2. So
Sir,
ratio, yeah.
Sir, means I wanted to say something. Sir, actually we have x1 by x2 dash. We know this ratio. We know x no load, which is x1 plus xm, and you also know x block rotor, which is actually x1 plus x equivalent. So here we have actually three variables: x1, x2 dash, and xm, and we have three values. So we can solve and find.
We have the values of x1 plus x5 or xm, correct?
Yes, we know x1 by x2 dash. The ratio is given.
x1 plus x1 by x2 dash ratio is given.
Yes, and we know x block rotor, which is x1 plus x equivalent, and x equivalent is a function of x2 dash and xm.
But it is also a function of, you will see that
it is R2 dash. Yes, it's also a function of R2 dash. But sir, I have made some approximation. I have neglected R2 dash by xm because xm is very large as compared to R2.
Okay, you may try that. I don't know. Maybe it will come closer. Maybe it will come possible. It will be possible. But I am just saying.
And actually, Sir,
yeah.
and actually also, if we don't neglect R2 dash also, we know R block rotor test, and R block rotor test is actually R1 plus R equivalent, which is a function of again XM R2 dash, and that thing from that also we can find the four
Probably we
equations.
can find, probably we can find, but you know, this is a engineering kind of approach where some approximation, small errors are tolerated, provided the thing simplifies the thing. So a practical engineer who is working in the in an industry, if you ask him to solve 4 equations and then find out, that will not be accepted as a valid procedure. Okay, so they will better say that you approximate, and this approximation, therefore they put a table. So in the table, if that is the thing, you tell me what is the, from the test result, what is the block rotor value we have got, and then they will correspondingly directly write what is x1 and x2 dash. Okay, the other things are filled up empirically, like a table, like a chart that is filled up. So let's accept this at the time being. So don't try to be too fussy about the accuracy part. Please don't try to be too fussy. Just it is a kind of procedure, and people know that there are small errors, but that is not so substantial. That is the argument they are giving. So let's continue like that and complete it first. So you know from here what is x1 and x2, because you know what is block rotor test, right? But that has not. So if you know x1 and x2 separately, now I am able to find out what is xm. So xm or x phi. This is x phi or xm. So xm is nothing but xm. Xm is nothing but, this is the x no load. This is the x no load part, 21.8. That is the x no load part, minus 0.623. What is 0.623? 0.623 is x1. 0.623 is nothing but x1. So we are getting the value of the magnetizing inductance 21.2 ohm from no load test. So this is the value we get it from the no load test. Okay, now we are trying to find, we have to, only thing that is that has to be found out is, so we have found out what? Let us take a stock. We have found out R1 because it is given. Okay, so then we have found out in a complicated manner. First we have found out x block rotor, and from the x block rotor we have found out what is x1 and x2. Then from that we have found out what is xm, the magnetizing inductance, because magnetizing inductance has been found out from the x no load. From the x no load you subtract x1 and you get x magnetizing. So we have found out R1, x1, x no load. So the only unknown thing is now is the rotor resistance. So now you take this equivalent circuit, rotor equivalent circuit, where R equivalent plus X equivalent, as I said, is nothing but a parallel combination of XM, JXM and R2 plus JX2 dash. R2 dash plus, this is a parallel combination. So we now make it, so R equivalent must be the real part of this parallel combination. We equate it this way. R equivalent must be, and we already know R equivalent, right? Because R equivalent is R block rotor minus R1, right? So we, from the measurement itself, we know what is R equivalent, because R equivalent is equal to R block rotor minus R1. So so equating these two things, one side we are equating R equivalent from the equivalent values. So if I write it this way, I have written this way, R equivalent plus JX equivalent is equal to this part, because it's a parallel of XM by or X phi into R2 plus JX, R2 dash, always use a dash, R2 dash plus JX2 dash by R2 dash plus JX2 dash plus JX phi. Then you make it real by multiplying numerator and denominator by R2 minus JX2 plus X phi, that you do, and then expand. And I have already picked up the real part, because I am only interested in the real part here. So R equivalent is coming out to be, if you take this part, this is real part. Hello, yeah.
Sir, how much did you get x1? Can you please tell again? How much you got x1?
X1
Yes, sir.
X1 is 0.603.
So, sir, I approximated that thing and I got 0.632 from the approximation I made.
As such, that is a little more error. I don't know uh, which one should I accept. I point not so bad, but 0.03 is quite a bit with respect to 0.6. That is how much? 0.03 means 5% error. Okay, so 1 by 20, 5% error. Anyway, let's not go there. Even that 5% error will not make such a big difference. So for convenience sake, they approximate it that way. From a table where the block rotor value is given, and they, since the ratio of these two things are given, we can find for a block rotor value, they will give for that particular construction of the induction machine, that squirrel cage induction machine. So what is the ratio of x1 and x2 dash, that they will give, and from that normally people will be finding out. Okay, so here we just see that this is the equivalent circuit, and we are doing simple analysis and simple manipulation of the variables, and we eventually get R equivalent is equal to R2 physical R2 dash x phi square into R2 square plus x2 plus x phi square. That is what we have got. Again, I repeat, so many variables are involved. R equivalent is the equivalent resistance in the circuit. R2 is the physical rotor resistance. X phi is the magnetizing reactance, and this is the summation of x2 plus x phi is the second one. So, so what we do is here we do a little more approximation. Little more approximation is the denominator R2 square we ignore, because we already know this will be much more much higher value, maybe at least x2 plus x5 will be much higher value, maybe 10 times 20 times higher value. So there is no point taking R2 square when these two things are summed up. So it is approximately equal to x2 plus x5 whole square. X5 is a substantially high value, we know. So therefore R2, the resistance, we have got an expression which is reasonably simple, which is R equivalent into x2 plus x5 whole square by x5 square. And what is the x equivalent? As I said, it is the block rotor resistance that you are getting. Subtract stator resistance from that block rotor value into this expression. So if you put the numbers, so you will get a value of 0.445 ohm per phase. We already had calculated our block rotor, and R1 is given to us. X2 we have calculated from X block rotor and taking the ratio into consideration. X phi we have calculated, or XM we have calculated from X no load minus X1. So all the values we have are available, and therefore we can get this value. So this way we get the equivalent circuit parameters of an induction machine from tests. Basically, we have used so far we have used two test data. One is no load, one is the block rotor test at 15 Hz, that is low frequency test. From that data, we have various way adjusted and manipulated. The most important thing sometimes people forget, that the first data of X block rotor that we had got, we had to scale it up corresponding to the 60 Hz value. So we had to scale it up by 60 by 15 coefficient, and that way you get the correct thing. Now the another data that was given in this, that is the block rotor test conducted at 60 Hz. So block rotor test conducted at 60 Hz corresponds to what? It must be corresponding to starting condition. So from that we can get, by physical measurement, what is the starting torque of the machine. Starting torque of the machine we can calculate from that test data. So starting torque, again you know that any torque is air gap power by omega sin. So that must be equal to input power minus stator copper loss by omega sin. Air gap power is coming to the air gap power minus stator copper loss by omega sin. and input power is given because we are given the wattmeter readings under this condition, under the condition of block rotor test at 60 Hz. So that data is 16,800 plus 3,300. So that is the input power minus 3 into I square. You see the starting current? You see the how much is the starting current? This is what is giving you the value. That is what is happening. 83.3 ampere is the starting current, whereas the machine's load rated current is 19. Still the machine is not so bad. It is about 4.5 times. So in some machines it even goes to 7 times, which is the problem. The starting current value. Okay, 83.3 ampere square into 0.262. 362 is the stator resistance measured, and this is a 4-pole machine. So synchronous speed is 2 pi into 60 into half. So with that we calculate the starting torque of the machine, that is 77.6 Newton meter. If you have any question, comment, please ask me.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, could you please upload this document in the file section so that we can see it?
I will upload. But
And
any
sir,
question?
Could you please scroll up a little bit?
Scroll up. I will scroll up a little bit. You tell me. More or here?
No, sir, it's okay now.
Remember the equivalent circuit. That's enough. Remember the equivalent circuit. This is the no load equivalent circuit. This is the loaded equivalent circuit. Remember that things are not made so difficult for us. By when we find out X block rotor, we can find out X1 and X2 dash because the ratio would be given. Okay, sometimes the ratio is 1:1, then you assume them to be equal. So people have already worked on it and found out what would be the decoupling part when you have something block rotor reactance, how to separate the X1 and X2 dash empirically. Empirically they have found out, and that is what is given to us. Yes.
So after finding XM, how did we find R equivalent and R2 dash?
R equivalent is seen by the circuit, right? So R equivalent is a parallel combination of XM and X2 plus X2 plus R2 dash plus X2, JX2. Yes or no? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us compute what is then R equivalent as per our analysis. R equivalent, two parallel things we have done. This is the thing. JXM. This is the parallel thing I have written, and then equated real part with this equal part. Real part of the right hand side with the real part of the left. So we got R equivalent is equal to R2 X phi square. This is the expression we have got. And you know, in this expression, almost everything we know except R2. Because R equivalent we know. What is R equivalent? See the equivalent circuit. What is R equivalent? R block rotor minus R1. That is R equivalent. R block rotor is coming from measurement. R1 is given to us from the first DC resistance measurement. So I know R equivalent. If I know R equivalent, and already I have found out XM from no load data, so I know everything, and X2 dash has been found out from the block rotor data. So I thought, so only unknown variable here is got it, right? So this is the way we find out. So I will stop here. Thanks for listening, and I will upload it in the file section. I will upload this part. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.